What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. All right, well, in the crypto market, it seems that lately things are not super exciting. There's not been a whole lot of crazy stuff happening, and honestly, we've been just kind of going crabbing and sideways here for the past while. But these are the times where I want to be paying attention and still watching things, still learning, still researching. And so have some news today, because you know me, I like to look at things from a macroeconomic point of view. I like to really see things and look at the big picture, because it really does help. But first of all, I did want to mention, shout out on, go give me a follow on my Instagram. You see here, Dylan J. Bartram, do a lot of stories, content. So if you want to see different kind of crypto content on my stories, shout out to my handle there on Instagram. But let's dig into some articles I want to share first, because this kind of paints the picture of what I want to talk about, and that is really, where is decentralized finance going, and what are some updates on some of those coins and companies that we hold, like Alliance Block. We're going to talk about that, some LCX, have some information about the Federal Reserve and some stable coins being issued. So I think that'll make a lot of sense. And also DeFi on Alliance Block. So stay tuned to that. Make sure you watch to the end. But we have this article I wanted to share here. World's largest wealth fund warns permanent inflation will hit returns. So, you know, this is really a big thing, obviously. I don't really feel like we're going to have, with it being literally February 1st, I don't know that we're going to have a clarity on you know, last month's inflation numbers. I'll probably be at 7%, if not higher, and that is literally just the U.S.'s numbers. And the U.S. obviously is not the only country here we're looking at. So this is kind of interesting. You see here, I'm not going to read everything here, but Nicolai Tangen, I hope I'm saying his name, you see here, they're in charge of chief executive of Norway's $1.3 trillion oil fund, said that basically also to the size of that oil fund is the equivalent of 1.5% of every listed company in the world. He thought inflation could be stronger than what is generally expected as the world's experiencing high demand. Obviously, so yeah, we're going to still see this as a major pressure on the overall crypto market. Now you see here, SEC's proposed rule on exchanges could threaten DeFi. This is Hester Pierce, Commissioner Crypto Mom. She's talking about, you know, how their language really could be a method of control as currently worded. And there's a lot of regulation that is in the pipelines there coming out, so it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. So that's what we're going to talk about more, though, as well as DeFi in particular, what that actually is. And I wanted to share this here. The Fed's actually, you see, they released new research on risk and promise of stablecoins. So this is actually from yesterday here. So I have the actual report, and I'll skim through and just kind of summarize the main points here for you, because it was kind of long in many pages. It would be way too long for this video. But essentially, they were just looking at the different types of stablecoins, what they were using. Now, actually, they shout out, the Federal Reserve does actually mention DeFi. So some people are like, well, DeFi will go away. So we're going to actually examine what that would look like in a centralized system, because I feel like we're going into like a hybrid type system here. So the Federal Reserve says, to preserve stability, the report advocates for a two-tiered approach, which would have issuers rely on commercial banks for reserves rather than banking their tokens solely with Fed deposits. So, you know, the main thing is just going to be ensuring that there is that stability. And with that legislation too, I know there was Senator, I think Tom Emmer was trying to pass legislation that would prevent the Federal Reserve from issuing CBDC. So we have that. But anyway, you have the Federal Reserve here releasing their new report, and essentially they're wanting to see here, researchers Gordon Lau and John Carmichael examine the current stablecoin ecosystem. So they're talking about what actually the different types were, how the systems for stability work. They dive deeper into credit intermediation, essentially how broad adoption of stablecoins could impact balance sheets of financial institutions and how that would affect the interaction between consumers and banks. It compares stablecoin narrow banking, in which physical cash is tokenized and backed by full reserves at the central bank, to two-tiered intermediation, in which stablecoins are backed by deposit issuers held at commercial banks. So among the various scenarios, a two-tiered banking system can support both stablecoin issuance and maintain traditional forms of credit creation. So they're talking about, in contrast, though, a narrow bank stablecoin framework can bring the most stability, but at the potential cost of credit disintermediation. So they find that a two-tier system is going to just create less risk to U.S. financial stability. So they want the narrow bank approach guarantees the stablecoin peg remains unmoved, but financial distress could create a situation in which large swaths of people move their money from commercial banks. So they're really looking at how that is going to have a wider impact. Now we see here also too, we've got some more hearings coming out in February to discuss. You see here the president's working group on financial markets. So we've had a lot of talk with that, and you know they're actually coming out here as well. You see the U.S. Senate slate for a hearing on stablecoins for February 15th. They've already had a lot of talks. We've watched the one last month that they had with several different CEOs of different crypto type institutions here. But this is the actual paper. Now I wanted to actually scroll down. This is the one talking about stablecoins. Now you see here in the past year, USD pegged stablecoins circulated on public blockchains. You see with a combined circulating supply of nearly 130 billion as of September of 2021, 500% increase from a year ago. But they start talking about DeFi. They talk about the basics of the stablecoins, the current types here, and this is what I wanted to bring: the different types, public reserved, algorithmic. But they talk about DeFi, and really the current system that we are in right now is just, I don't see a sustainable way for just the traditional 401k model to continue. And so you see here the Federal Reserve themselves here mentioning use cases and growth potential of stablecoins. They're talking about digital markets, payments, internal transfers, and they say DeFi. The programmability and composability of stablecoins currently supports decentralized blockchain-based cryptocurrency markets and services known as DeFi. So, you know, the main thing there is that it's going to allow for that decentralized, collateralized lending, derivatives, the whole thing. So I feel like the narrative is what we need to look at. Now, me being, 34, I don't really have any hope of solely relying on a 401k anymore, especially with everything that's going on in the world. So DeFi is kind of like, if you're watching this, you may be a millennial as well. We need to take the opportunity to educate ourselves, because DeFi, I feel like, is here to stay. It's just going to morph into a more regulated space. And so that is going to really take us into, well, if we know that DeFi is going to be around, and we know that even the Federal Reserve is talking about how, look, you see here, stable coins are going to support a more inclusive financial system through the growth of DeFi. We know that DeFi will be around. It's just going to look different. So, like Alliance Block, LCX, certain assets like that we hold are going to be what play a pivotal role in this. You see your tokenized financial markets. Stablecoins are going to play a key role in tokenizing financial markets. Well, we know LCX is doing that as well. So let's actually move into this, because speaking of DeFi and decentralization, Alliance Block is one of those that is making huge strides here. And so you see here, this is like actually an update. Transient next gen contracts here, you actually see they are allowing staking on their platform here. And really what that is, let me actually pull this up here. This is a DeFi terminal on Alliance Block. Now, this is one that I'm personally looking at. And in 2022, I'm just going to tell you guys right now watching this here on the channel, this is what I'm going to be talking about and sharing the rest of this year, because I believe, there's a lot of different avenues to earn money in crypto, gaming, the metaverse, buy and hold, trading. I mean, there's a lot of different avenues here. But for me personally, I like the actual institutional type model. I like finding those ones that are behind the scenes, that are forming those deep connections where really the money is, because I feel like the ones that are going to be regulated and finding that is going to be the ones that survive. And also too, it's just those are really decentralized finance. Yield farming is going to be something that, I consider myself really just a basic level of understanding right now. Yield farming, liquidity pools, but diving deep into that in 2022 on top of buying and holding those assets that are going to appreciate in utility and value over the long run. I want my assets to actually start building and earning more passive income. And so DeFi and learning how that is going to be part of that. Alliance Block, it makes me even more excited and bullish to own Alliance Block. They have essentially their liquidity mining as a service. That is one of their things. Now you see here, I'm going to pull up their roadmap. They actually had that in their various versions throughout 2021. They got some really exciting things. Q1 2022 coming out. They're going to continue to ramp up their liquidity mining as a service. But that is a real, I don't think people really understand how big that is. Liquidity mining allows you to get different tokens here. And as I do this myself this year, this is what I will be sharing. I'll be sharing and documenting how just the average person can take. I know most people don't have $10, $20, $50,000 to just drop into some DeFi. Most folks probably watching this, you might have an extra couple $100 a week, maybe $500 a month, maybe that if you're lucky, maybe you got 1,000 or two if you're really, lucky. But the average person, I know you might not have tons of extra. So how can just the average person, take $500 a month, put an extra $1,000 and really start growing that, even if it's a little bit? How can we start earning some passive yield a lot quicker so that we can compound our returns and essentially build wealth and protect ourselves from growing inflation? So this is one of those terminals that Alliance Block uses, and essentially, you pull your different tokens and you mine for liquidity. You combine it, and you earn a yield on people using your tokens for liquidity, essentially. And I mean, these APYs are crazy. So if you're watching this and you're already doing things like this, awesome. I mean, hats off to you. It's only going to continue to grow and more from here. It's a great and exciting space. Leave a comment if you're already doing it. What liquidity pools, what yield farms are you most interested in? I would love to know what you guys are digging into, because Alliance Block, though, is going to be one of those I feel like is connected to the overall, not just the renegade, fly-by-night, small type DeFi. They are really appealing to how can we bring institutions into this space. And so this is the beginning of what you're seeing. The Open Rights Exchange, that's another DeFi terminal inside, powered by Alliance Block. So they're bringing in all these institutional players here. Well, how are they doing that? Well, they're really going after Switzerland, Swiss type banks. They're forming connections with Open Wealth API. What is that? Open Wealth API, they have massive connections. I just wanted to point this out. Open Wealth API, they're based in Europe here. Right in Switzerland. Their mission is to strengthen Switzerland as a financial hub and innovation center by connecting financial institutions. So we know that basically Swiss banks. I'm sure you've heard Swiss banks. Everyone goes there. At least even when I was growing up, it was always like the Swiss banks. People would hide their money. The Swiss banks are where the global elite hide their money. Like the offshore accounts. Well, these are these right here. These are these banks that have tons of money. This is institutional money. And the interesting thing too is when people say, well, where's Alliance Block? Who are they partnering with? By them partnering through Open Wealth API in Switzerland, they get access to all these other institutional banks, these Swiss banks, these banks with big pockets, and that is what is going to allow this decentralized space to grow here. So you see here, they're actually really growing there. Crypto Valley becomes companies by region. Crypto Valley, which includes Switzerland and Liechtenstein, is home to 1,128 blockchain cryptocurrency companies there. So they got a lot. They're just popping over there in Europe. And that's pretty awesome to see. So anything connected in that area, is going to be, heavy connections to, the IMF, the World Economic Forum, the folks that make policy, the ones that set policy, and the ones that, really decide what is going to be and what is not going to be. So I found that interesting on this as well. Now, I wanted to actually share this too as well, because this is kind of and shout out to Tasha on Twitter, because if you don't follow her, she's a brilliant crypto macro economic analyst, and you see right here, just go give her a follow, because you could literally, if you're a macro nerd as well and you like learning about the big picture, she's great to really break things down. And she points out really just an interesting paradigm shift, and I'm just like, wow, that makes so much sense. If capital income in the future, you see everyone is becoming an investor. And what I mean by this is if capital income and staking income become more important relative to labor income, it'll make sense that all of us spend more time taking care of those, just like we spend more time at work. So what does that actually mean, right? So I wanted to actually break this down because it makes so much sense. If everything of value becomes tokenized, there's always going to be more investment opportunities than what you have resources for. Screening and evaluating one's portfolio becomes an essential day-to-day task, just like mowing the lawn or washing dishes. I don't see delegating investment decisions to asset management companies becoming in vogue in the same way that I don't see most people delegating their wage-earning jobs to someone else. If it's an important source of income, it becomes an essential activity. Not to mention that working hours, time that you use to earn labor income, will continue to go down with increasing productivity and more jobs taken by machines. So more time will thus be allocated to investing, i.e. capital income earning activities, right? So with the internet, basically everything being connected through that, how to invest will become a basic life skill that needs to be acquired and perfected in most people's rites of passage to adulthood, along with other essential skills like how to write, how to code, how to put on makeup, etc. They don't teach that right now. So basically her point is, well, we need to learn how to do this because in the future there'll be more opportunities to make money. We just have to, you have to actually expend more effort finding those, and that might be an important part of you earning money. There'll be staking. There'll be opportunities for the average person to more easily make income. It'll be more readily available, but it's going to take still time for you to set those up and for you to like make sure that you're, you know, still in the right yield farms and that you're harvesting the right yields and that you're paying attention to the right liquidity pools. I mean, this stuff is always ever changing. So I guess in the future, you have to stay up on that just like you would spend time for anything else. So I felt like that was a valid point and something really worth considering moving in, you know, and wanted to share this as well. Wrapping up here, you see Alliance Block bridging the gap between DeFi and financial institutions. And again, these big institutions here, like goodness, I bet you could even connect. You could dig into any of these banks and just find some deeper connections down the rabbit hole, right? But they wanted to actually share this: the challenges of actually selling DeFi to institutions. So what's preventing this becoming even more in vogue, you know, where it's happening? Well, obviously the KYC and the AML checks. Well, what does that mean? The know your customer and the anti-money laundering. Alliance Block has made it where they don't actually, the big institutions are going to know who you are without actually knowing who you are. It's a trustless way to verify who you are, for one. But it's going to allow where it doesn't have to work anonymously. Investors want to verify who they're working with to guarantee trust, but it's also regulation and compliance requirements. So also user experience. DeFi's got to get better as a user experience, and it's highly focused on the individual. Improving organizational infrastructure should also be a high priority. So this is coming. It's morphing. It's molding into where, you know, I feel like if we are going to accumulate through 2022, and don't get me wrong, I feel like at the end of 2022 or at some point in 2022, we're going to see more bullish price activity. I really do. I feel like we still have that potential here. But regardless, even for the next few years, a lot of these assets that we hold, that we talk about, that we're updating on, the ones that we know are connected, it's even more of a better time to continue to research, double down on where things are. And because I feel like we've got a lot of exciting things coming out in 2022 and 2023, it's just, you know, paying attention when times feel like nothing is going on. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I appreciate every single one of you guys watching this. Really, I do. Leave a like on this video. It definitely helps keep these videos coming out, and I'd love to hear any comments you have about DeFi. Like I said, if you're already yield farming and you're into DeFi and you're making some passive income, leave the ones that you're actually in right now, the ones that you like the best, that are working out the best for you. What should we talk about more on this channel? Which yield farms are worth folks getting into this actually pursuing? And we'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you on the next video.